Coming out has changed my life in infinite amount of ways. On one hand, like, nothing's changed, but on the other hand, everything's changed. I don't know how that makes sense, but to me it does. I was a super sensitive kid, yeah. I always didn't want to bother other people. That was the main thing. I just didn't want my presence to be like annoying or boring, or I just didn't want to muck up anyone else's like thing. I already stood out because my brothers and sisters from my mum's side looked Caucasian. Then I was like the darkest one, and people always like from the outside would always assume that we weren't even related, and so I always felt like off to the side. By the outside sort of world. You know, there weren't that many other black kids in Australia that I grew up with. Race definitely had a lot to do with me feeling different. And then also the fact that I danced and like the other boys in school didn't dance, and like, so then you get sort of teased about that. One of my sisters, she would always like go and like put them in their place. So she would kind of take down the bullies for me, which was good. This girl at school who I had a crush on, her name was Shelley. I think I was 12. We were best friends, and I was like, I kept trying to ask her out, she kept saying no, and I was like, why? Like, I keep trying to say, like, we can't be together, we're just gonna be friends. And I was like, why? She's like, because you're gay, you're gonna be gay. And I was like, what? But I like you, like, I like you a lot. And she's like, oh, I just know it. I know I get told I'm feminine and my voice is high, and she's like, no, you're gonna be gay. I was like, oh, am I? Oh. Okay, and then that's when I started like just questioning it, because like you have other people saying like that's what you are. I felt kind of crappy because I was like, I really like you. And I didn't have any feelings for guys. But again, I only had feelings for girls up until I was like 19. When I was 19 is when I had like my first like big crush for a guy, and that's when I was like, oh, can't really deny these feelings. I came out to my mum when I was 21. I came out to her because like my heart had just been broken, so like I called her, and like it was a first heartbreak, so like it wasn't like a pretty nice like experience, but she drove up to me and like we just had the longest chat and spoke about everything, and she knew that I was like going through something for a few months, but she didn't know. We've always been best friends, and I actually think like since being out to her, we became much closer. Instead of her saying like, what's up, what's wrong, and like me never being able to give a response, being like, you don't understand, like you'll never understand. And then, because that's what it was like, and then they're like, there's just this wall between you. I definitely had people, whether it was professionally or personally in my life, like tell me that it would be an issue, a potential issue if I was to come out, because maybe audiences wouldn't know how to take me as an actor, and there were certain people that had said, you know, you're about to start like a superhero show, and you know, it just could be like a thing, and then like I found out actually very shortly after that Ezra Miller, who was playing the Flash in the movie, was openly queer, and I was like, well, I have a perfect example of like, no, I can just be myself. And I wasn't planning on coming out at the time, but it gave me a lot of confidence to know like whenever I was ready, like it's not a problem. Like I've got someone like right there who's doing them so unapologetically. So, and at that point, I was strong enough to say to those people to shut up. Because I knew I was still struggling with it, but I was aware enough to say like, this is my struggle, like you can all go away, please. It was definitely an interesting feeling going into Love, Simon and filming it and knowing that it was still something in terms of my sexuality that I wasn't putting out to the public and even like the casting crew on set. It's just, there's so many different levels of coming out, and I felt like because so much of my life was constantly meeting new people and like starting new jobs, and those were the places where I wasn't being completely truthful. Yeah, I've still felt very, very much in the closet, and I guess I was then inspired by the storyline and the fact that there was so much support on set for these characters. It made me go, well, like, there's nothing to be afraid of. I have to take this step for myself.
afraid of my place, of this way, of my feelings. But I'm amazed at how we talk. It's so chill, but there's tension.
Since coming out, my creativity's been awesome. I'm able to come up with more ideas that are more organic and come from a cooler space, and I get to use the things that I was sort of struggling with before and how I'm no longer in that space, and like actually use that in my creativity rather than my sexuality or anything sort of being in the way of what I can create. Now it's like just another tool in expressing myself. I feel like I granted myself absolute freedom. We're all in different scenarios and everyone has a story, everyone has suffered, everyone is suffering in so many different ways. And there are so many things coming at us. The world is so noisy, it's so chaotic. But I realized like there were so many things that I could control. I could control if I'm wearing like floppy ears right now, or if I'm going to say like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Like I'm in an interview, people are watching, I should look cool. Like I'm an adult, like what am I doing? The only thing that would stop me is if I was worrying about what other people thought. So once I was free from what other people think about me, it made me happy.
If you wanna kiss the boy, then you better kiss the boy right now.